Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Blue Card Instructor webinar for January 2026. We've got Josh Bloom and Chris Stewart here who will be leading us through today's conversation. And we'd like to welcome all of you. We're going to be about an hour today. We'll see how this takes us. We are live. We're going to take your comments. So if you've got comments or questions, I'll be moderating those over in the comments section. I see we have a number of people checking in from all over North America at this point. So thanks for checking in and saying hi. And I'll be watching there for your questions as Chris goes through the presentation today, or any other questions that we may have time for during the webinar. Just a couple of things that I wanted to hit before we get going here. Number one, if you do not regularly receive the B-Shifter Buck Slip, here's a QR code so you can sign up for it. The B-Shifter Buck Slip comes out every Tuesday, and it is our information for Blue Card ICs and leaders. We alternate between leadership and real operational incident commander video, not videos, but articles, sometimes videos, and also we have our podcasts in there. That goes directly to your email box. We do have some folks that have trouble getting it because they're either blocked through their city email or it ends up in their junk box. So maybe a way to get this, if you're not receiving it on a regular basis, is to put an alternate email in so you make sure you're receiving that. All of our pertinent information, including when we have these kind of webinars and updates for instructors, are in the B-Shifter Buck Slip. The other thing is the B-Shifter podcast. It comes out just about every week. On the B-Shifter podcast, we feature, again, it's a mixture of leadership and operational topics. We'll have audio from Blue Card departments, usually very successful audio, including rescues, including defensive shifts, the things that people might have questions about. We give some good examples on there. And then, of course, we're talking about command issues. So issues for incident commanders are on the B-Shifter podcast. Again, right there's the QR code if you want to scan the QR code and subscribe to it. Also, it's available on every platform there is out there. So whether it's Apple, iHeartRadio, Spotify, we are on all the platforms. Just type in B-Shifter podcast and you should be able to get that. And again, we welcome you to subscribe. That way you do not miss one episode. And then we do have our next webinar set for March 11th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On that webinar, we will be discussing what we have in the download center and all the tools that are available for you as a Blue Card instructor. We review this a lot on our day 5 presentation and with new instructors, but if you've been an instructor for a while and you want to get refreshed and really have a good tour of not only all the simulations that are available, but also the continuing education, both the CEs that you would deliver as an instructor and the CEs that are available for your department. It's all going to be at this webinar on March 11th. I will put the sign up in the chat box here in just a moment when I get done talking, so you can click on that link or again, scan that QR code and get signed up for the March 11th, 1 p.m. instructor webinar. If you've got instructors within your department and they may be out of the loop a little bit, this would be a very good one for them to get into. And then finally, we have a few highlights here, but we have a lot more than this. Go to bshifter.com for all of the dates that we have coming up in 2026. But we just wanted to highlight some with openings. A number of classes are closed because there are no further openings, but we do have some seats available in the Mayday Management Workshop in Cobb County, Georgia, February 18th through the 19th, the Big Box Workshop in Ocala, Florida, March 12th through 13th, the Mayday Management Workshop in Bowling Green, Ohio, March 23rd through the 24th. We have another ARF instructor class. That's a Train the Trainer for our ARF program. That's going to be in Phoenix at the Alan V. Brunacini Command Training Center, April 7th through the 9th. And then also another Train the Trainer for regular Blue Card instructors at the AVB CTC, April 13th through 17th. We are going to Canada with a number of workshops and an ARF instructor train the trainer class. We'll be in Ottawa, Canada, April 27th through the 29th for the ARF instructor. We have a Mayday management workshop coming to Canmore in Alberta, Canada, May 4th through the 5th. And then a number of other ones too. So I won't read the rest of them, but do get onto our site, get signed up if you're thinking of either getting into a workshop or you have folks that you need to be trained as instructors. Those seats always fill up fast. We try to limit it so we have a good experience for our students. So that's why we usually cap it at a certain number. But get on there, get signed up, and check out all of the dates. In addition to those dates, Josh, I think you just added a few more, like right before we went live here, right?
Yeah, so we added a Mayday workshop May 21st and 22nd in Cottage Grove. So that's on the back of we're already doing one, the 19th and 20th, and they got a overwhelming response with over 40 people. So we just announced another class to do it right on the backside of that Mayday workshop. And then we'll be in Hall County, Georgia for a big box workshop coming up, but I don't believe there's going to be any open seats in that. I think it's sold out right away. So really the only big box opportunity right now is the Ocala, Florida class for this year so far. So,
okay. Very good. Hey, just a question in the chat. And again, if you have any questions, put them over in the comment box. This is recorded. So if you have to leave for a run or something else comes up, immediately when this webinar is done, you will get it into your inbox so you can watch it on demand. So if you have to take a break somewhere during the webinar, you will get an email with a link so you can watch it on demand immediately following the webinar. Josh, we do have some other updates before we move over to Chris's presentation. Which updates do we have, and what's really new with Blue Card as of today?
Yeah, so Chris is going to cover quite a bit of this and a few things in detail, but so every year we try to update, all of our curriculum to make it align with, standards and best practice and so on. So Chris is going to talk about the day one PowerPoint and the SIM previews that have been updated. We've made an update to some of the Mayday curriculum. Our day 5, PowerPoint for instructors that's in that download center. We're refining that one more time, and then that'll be refreshed. So that's a good place to go just to see, what's available, what's going on, some how-to stuff. We created a new 3-day agenda playbook that'll be available in the instructor 3-day folder. We've gone through all of the check sheets. So IC1, IC2, support officer, senior advisor, and we're creating a new objective check sheet for division bosses. More of a best practice. This is the big picture responsibilities of those roles. So those will be available in the instructor download center probably within this week. We're pushing out a new model procedures guide. So we always had that Blue Card SOP. The one that's 240 pages. That's almost a reference document. We've revamped that, and it's going to be model procedures, Blue Card model procedures guide. So a little better tool, a little simpler that you could update your own SOGs in your fire department right out of that guide. All 17, I think we have now SOGs. Those are going to be republished this week with updates again for aligning with best practice. And we've had, some other folks outside of our group that are on NFPA committees and so on review some of those to make sure that we are indeed aligning with best practice. For example, big box, Shane Ray going through our big box SOG, that this indeed is best practice. Speaking of the big box stuff, he's presenting today up in Indiana on that Walmart distribution center fire, like lessons learned. So we're looking forward to catching up with him next week, Tuesday and Wednesday here in Cincinnati for a big box workshop that we got coming, and hear what came out of that. I've seen Matt Dory's on here, and I think Cole's on here too, but we're going to replace the Clay task manual that's currently on there with an updated task manual. That's just a guide that, puts you on the right path to start building your own at your organization. Got a couple new CEs coming out. We've added several tutorial videos. So on the student dashboard now, there's a tutorial video that pops up right on the main page of how do you get certified? More importantly, how do you maintain the certification? And then what you're looking at on your own student dashboard. What does all that really mean? So hopefully that helps. Tons of updates to the AAR. So we'll have a webinar probably coming up in April, maybe, about the updates to the AAR and all the stuff we've done with that. We got 2 Silverback leadership modules coming out, one likely next week, and then one 3 or 4 weeks, I'd say, roughly after that. Other than that, I don't know, I got a dozen other things that we've done, that we're working on, that we're doing. So we always try to keep our nose to the grindstone and keep working. So if you guys need something or have questions, reach out anytime. But other than that, Chris can fire away.
That's all you had, Josh? That's kind of a short list. Really the kind of the bulk, and probably the thing that's folks are going to, especially instructors, are going to be most interested in is kind of updates and adaptations and modernizations of what it is that instructors will be teaching, and the resources that we're going to provide and have been providing, right, to be able to do that. And so, as we like to say, we live in command function 7 around here. We're constantly reviewing, constantly revising, and now we've got kind of a better mechanism and can make these changes a little bit more quickly and to make things more relevant and timely for everybody who's instructing. So one of the things that we took a look at is for our certification lab, as well as the train the trainer, is what can we do to better produce quality training and produce better incident commanders and better certified incident commanders. And then in order to be able to do that, then we need to be able to support and train instructors to giving them the best possible opportunity to deliver good information that is well supported, fully understanding the why, helping to be able to answer the difficult questions that students ask, and I'm going to say rightfully ask, right? Because we know in the fire service we're not just going to be bowled over by just any information that comes along. There's a strong intuitive vetting process that firefighters use. Sometimes we'll call that a BS meter that helps them try to figure things out. So we're trying to support our instructors, all of our instructors, to be better and to have the best information right then and there to be able to deliver that. So there has been an update, small changes really to the 3-day Cert Lab curriculum. It revolves around information that is relevant to what's going on in the fire service today. We've had some important foundational kind of documents and standards and research that's come about in the last couple of years that helps us be able to better support some of the things we're doing. The system is still the system, right? We still have the 8 functions of command. We still have strategic decision making. But the thought is, all right, how do we better put those together to support not just necessarily the training, although that's a very important thing, but more importantly, how are we doing out in the field? Like, how are we actually doing as an IC1 or an IC2, responding on these calls and managing these incidents? And because those directly connect to the outcome for the community and the safety, welfare, and probably mental well-being of our firefighters, right? So we want to be able to manage that better. So one of the elements we've done is we've provided in the train the trainer curriculum is now there is an introduction to that that is meant and designed to support Blue Card instructors with more understanding of the why. What's the why in the history of Blue Card, and what do we really want out of our instructors? And so that information we've delivered now twice and have had fantastic feedback from both the instructors, our lead instructors, as well as, we're up to 30 students, I think, that have seen it. So it does better support them. Some of them have actually been instructors for a while, so they were going back through or auditing some of the information, and the feedback was this was really helpful. So so JV, could you advance that slide for me, please? All right. So one of the things we're trying to help our folks define is, why do we need an incident command system, right? Because Really, our gut instinct at the task level is that, hey man, if we can just show up and do the work, we're going to do what's best for the community, and we are going to be able to fix problems, locate people, remove them, save stuff, and do all that kind of organically. Well, yes, we do show up with that intent. The reality is that it actually has to be managed and coordinated and organized so that, and well communicated so that we can actually do a better job. And then it does give us the ability afterwards to look at it and go, okay, how did we do? Not only at the task level with the work that has to get done, but how did we actually do with managing the incident, and maybe more importantly, with the decisions we made inside of managing that incident. In order to do that, you have to have an incident command system. And the foundation of our incident command system, and really any effective incident command system, but there's not a whole lot of other choices, right? Is first and foremost, the incident command system has to be about managing the work on the fireground. And we do that through incident strategy and the completion of the tactical objectives, all clear, under control, lost, stop, right? And so that incident command system has to start from the very beginning of the incident, and start from the evaluation of critical factors to actually making good decisions about what is the plan that needs to be executed here. And a good portion of that, or a critical portion of that, is what strategy should we be in? Are the critical factors present, and our evaluation of risk management present, that it's cool to be working in the hazard zone? Or if it's not, if we shouldn't be in based on those two things, then we need to work from outside the hazard zone. And how are we actually going to do that? And how are we going to identify exposures? And what are the savable things here, if anything, right, to be able to manage? So that incident command system, for the foremost, has to manage the work. This incident command system was never ever designed for anything other than managing the work. It wasn't designed to have a class, and it wasn't designed to be an academic exercise. It was designed because firefighters were going to work on the hazard zone. Alan Bernstein said very clearly that one of the biggest reasons he wrote Fire Command in the late 70s and early 80s is because the Phoenix Fire Department had tried to kill him multiple times in the hazard zone, right, from doing the work. So it needed to be better organized, better decisions had to be made. So that's kind of the foundation of this whole thing. The second part of that system has to be managing the safety and welfare of the firefighters actually doing that work. And the question is, why does that have to be a part of it? And I find that a funny question, but it is nonetheless, right? And it's important for us to help our students, our firefighters, the folks we're trying to train to be incident commanders, to know and understand that. The biggest reason why safety is an important element on the fire ground is because if we have to engage in saving each other on the fire ground, we are doing nothing for the customer. That is very clear. When we have maydays, when we have incidents within the incident that take our eyes off of getting an all clear, under control, lost, stop for the community, then we are ignoring it. People have stated that that's the fire service's dirty little secret. It's all about us, it's all about them until it's all about us. So we need to be able to operate in a manner that gets the work done, but actually keeps us safe so that we don't have to rescue one another. We do that in the system, most importantly, by using risk management that's directly sandwiched between the size up and critical factors and our choice in strategy. It has to permanently be there. Otherwise, you won't do it. And otherwise, it'll continue to be a problem for us. And folks documenting and researching and investigating, serious incidents or firefighter death will keep writing it. So until we do it, it can't be this separate system like that we somehow magically pull in and do. It has to become part of the normal process. And then the accountability. What's the position and function of everybody in the fire ground? The system has to be able to manage and control that from the very beginning, because otherwise, when those words "Mayday, Mayday, Mayday" come out over the radio, if I don't know where everybody is, the position and function of everybody is, I'm going to have to spend time on the fire ground figuring out. If I don't know who it is, who's having the Mayday, and if I don't know where they are, I got to figure out where they are. And all of that slows down my ability to actually manage and deploy an effective response to that mayday, both from inside the hazard zone and outside the hazard zone. So that accountability part of it matters, and it has to be built into the system as we go. So if we have an effective incident command system that can do both of these things simultaneously every time in a well-trained, organized, coordinated manner, we're actually doing pretty dang good. These two things will actually be fantastic prevention methods for maydays, for ineffective work, right? Where we're worried about the wrong thing and we're in the wrong place doing Lord knows what. So this is an important element. You can go to the next one, JV. So what's the Blue Card Incident Command System? The Blue Card Incident Command System is very much about managing the two things that were on the previous slide. And most specifically, it's there to manage the work on the fire ground and taking care of our customers. So not only what's the incident, what work needs to happen, what process, organization, communication needs to happen to be able to do it effectively, but more importantly, make good decisions about where lines need to go, good decisions about where we have the opportunity, the space to actually get in, locate or search for, locate, remove victims, manage and coordinate ventilation that needs to happen, in these residential settings. And then when we get onto the commercial fire ground, that knows and understands the difference between the residential fire ground and tactics and the commercial fire ground and tactics, and that we actually employ the right thing at the right time in the right way to be able to do what's best for the customer, and which is an interesting conversation when you talk about commercial fires versus residential, the difference in their expectations. And then on the backside, like we talked about previously, what do we have an incident command system that manages the effectiveness, accountability, and the safety of the firefighters doing the work, and integrated in and done every time. So that's what the system is. So when we certify ICs, we're certifying them to be able to accomplish this using a standard system and a standard process every time, that has been vetted, that has a foundation in best practice research and the standards that are available to us, and honestly the lumps and scars that we've had from failure and challenges throughout all of our years of experience. All of that's kind of tucked into this, and because we're kind of the keepers of this, right, are responsible for continually looking at, all right, how can we do this better? How can we do this differently? What needs to change and be adjusted? And it's not change just to change. It's change because something shows up and we've got to mature the system to be able to match it. The interesting part is Fire Command was published originally in 1985. So we're looking at 41 years since then. Has the fundamentals of the system changed in 41 years? Nope. Functions of command are still the root element, the spine and structure, if you will, to this incident command system. Has it matured with strategic decision making? Has it matured with the process inside of it? Absolutely, it has. What's worth its salt hasn't changed, improved, and adapted in 40 years to remain relevant and to remain effective. Very, very little things can actually stay the same and still be successful. So that's really been the process that has driven us to this point. And these are the things that we need to know and be able to do as instructors in helping our ICs become certified and then actually start doing the work in the real world. You go to the next one, JV. So what does it mean to be a blue card instructor? Well, there's two things that you actually need to be able to do. The first and foremost is you need to be a competent IC, and in order to be able to do that, you have to be able to utilize and exercise a system of how you manage incidents, and be able to effectively show up on whatever incident it is that we respond on, and exercise that system to manage the critical factors and apply the standard work that should be happening at these for that standard outcome. right? And so knowing and understanding that, what does that look like? And then knowing what the system is, regardless of the occupancy or hazard type that we show up on, to be able to execute. And one of the innate things that comes with this competency is some credibility, right? And it helps our ICs become credible in the eyes of the firefighters working in the hazard zone. Eric Phillips says very, very, very poignantly, and I really like when he says this, is if we're going to be ICs, there are certain things that our firefighters in the hazard zone need to know and trust that we are good at doing. One of those is one of the most critical, or two of the most critical things on the fire ground we need to be good at is strategic shift, going from offensive to defensive, and managing a mayday, right? And so we need to be able to do all the things that lead up to that. But when push comes to shove, those are the things that directly impact the life safety of our firefighters, as well as our community. And we need ICs that are competent and capable of actually being able to do that, and confidently, and as if they've done it 100 times before, whether they have or they haven't, right? That's the goal. And that's why we train on them. So that competent IC is an important part. And then the other part that has to do with making competent ICs is being a competent instructor. What is it that you're supposed to teach? What is it that the information that you're supposed to impart on people? More importantly, what is the why behind that information that helps them know, understand, and assimilate and process and figure out how to execute that stuff? We need to be able to do that in order to be an effective instructor. We know that just being a good firefighter doesn't make you a good boss. And being a good firefighter doesn't make you a good IC. Process, system, understanding, and then the ability and willingness to actually train to it and become good at is a critical element, right? So we all complain that experience is our greatest, one of our greatest challenges right now with regards to firefighters, our workforce, and the kind of the changeover, this changeover in the fire service. Well, we aren't in control of the experience. People that have tried to take control of the experience have ended up in prison. So I don't recommend that. That ain't a good idea. What we really are in control of, though, is our ability to train people and what we're going to train them on and how we're going to train them, and spending the time and the effort and the consistency in actually training folks to be an IC is an important part. We will spend a ton of time working on task level stuff. In fact, that's probably the one thing we come closest to is, that idea of 10,000 hours in skills mastery. If anything, in a larger perspective, it's going to be at the task level. Where we need to greatly improve is at 10,000 hours with regards to being ICs, and recognize the work that actually has to go in to becoming a competent IC and then a competent instructor, and spending the time doing that. Nobody's going to snap their finger and actually have it happen. You've got to work on it and build it. So we're trying to support that idea and that function. Next. So what is the timeline of Blue Card? Where did Blue Card come from? This was a pretty important slide that Nick put up when he was talking at our Hazard Zone conference back in October, right? And to see just how long ago this whole idea and process really actually began. First start talking about incident command and fire ground command in the NFPA magazine, uniquely named Fire Command, right? And that's where Bruno actually started writing for early in the 70s as a response chief and an ops chief here in the Phoenix Fire Department, and really started to share his ideas there. And that directly impacted, influenced, and actually became the textbook Fire Command in 1985. And the original was published in 85 by the NFPA at the time, and that became really the industry standard in that moment, because there really wasn't anything else. And where did that come from? That Fire Command, it came from a lot of different places. It wasn't just these wild ideas that he had in his head. It's coming from Fire Scope and and what was going on with two-eyed NIMS in California, and an incident command at a lot of different levels from a lot of different organizations and people that actually had input on that. So it wasn't done in a silo. At the same time, this thing called NFPA 1500 is starting to show up, and they're actually starting to look at and manage and calculate safety for firefighters, because it really hadn't been part of the equation, and it is now. And today it's actually 1550, but it continues to be critically important to the safety and welfare, both in the hazard zone and off, for firefighters. 1561 comes along as a part of that. It's actually the incident command standard and identifying the 8 functions of command and the other processes that are required within that to actually have a command system. Some of the initial research here with the NIST burns from 2000 with in the city of Phoenix. It was actually the conversation started in 2000, but they actually didn't happen until 2002, where actually doing live burns, measuring the data to be able to push and drive operational decisions in the fireground. This was a bowstrung building, looking at how long burn times before structural collapse. And then, interestingly enough, after the Brett Carver death, they actually were able to add some sensors in there to start looking at oxygen and carbon monoxide and other things in the environment that impacts firefighters, especially ones that start to have a mayday. 1550 then is the evolution of 1500, and then in 2021, 1700 shows up. That's the Guide for Structural Firefighting. The newest edition was released this year in 2026, just last month. You know, that is, as Dan Madrukowski said, you know, recently, that this document really, for the fire service, becomes the standard of care. And while it's a guide, it's going to become very difficult not to, it's going to become difficult to ignore, and it's going to become difficult to defend why we aren't including some of these practices in how we go about managing a fire scene and working on a fire scene. So there are strategic level considerations in this document that actually impact the work, the tactical and task level functions on the fireground, and it all comes together really nicely, in my opinion. And it was worked by a really, really strong committee of folks that actually cared and folks who actually have a clue. That is really the antithesis, in my opinion, of a lot of the criticism that the NFPA takes over their standards creation. All of these things led to the development and the continuation of Fire Command and then Command Safety after Brett Carver's death in 2002 and 2004. Then when Alan Bernasini retires from the Phoenix Fire Department in 2006, then Blue Card becomes a thing in 2008. And then since 2008, a lot of things have happened in Blue Card. The maturity and development of the program and the system and the process of how we train people and how we provide continuing education and certifications, but also accreditation, right? Being accredited by the American Council for Education and being able to apply college credits for, meaning the program has been vetted and challenged as best practice, is a pretty important thing. So all of those things together actually kind of create the foundation for what Blue Card is and how Blue Card has gone about actually moving forward. Go to the next one. So what is the history and reach? Since 2008, Blue Card has, we are in 4,500 fire departments, and we've had 70,000 incident commanders go through our system and process and certification. That's not an insignificant number, both for departments and for the number of incident commanders, especially when you look at the overall numbers that are estimated in the American Fire Service. That's a pretty substantial percentage, right? Since still this point in 2026, there is no national standard in the fire service to become an IC, that's recognized across the system, if you will. The closest thing to it is us, and I would argue the only thing in it is us and Blue Card. And so that's That's the impact that we've actually seen across the system. Next, Jamie. So in April of 2021, FDIC season, if you will, the third edition of Fire Command will be out. It's April of 2026, right? And so that will be the 41 years since the first one came out. And then so this will be shared with the world. And it really does align with what Blue Card is and teaches today. But the foundations are exactly the same: the 8 functions of command and strategic decision making. And what all have we learned about it? I would say that the greatest additions to the whole program now are better and more informed stuff on Mayday and firefighter safety and how that connects back to the work itself. What changes have we made inside the certification? So this is the schedule. It looks very similar to the previous schedule. So we've maintained the important parts as consistency, and then updated where updates are, make sense, right? It's pretty important. So you can go to the next one, JV. Along with that, we will have kind of the formalization of an instructor guide, right? A guide that actually, a playbook, if you will, that actually lays out how we're supposed to go about teaching, in a reference document of, okay, what do we need if we're going to be teaching day one? Here are the things that we need to set up, the materials, resources, tools that we need to support the class with, and what gets delivered. When we start simulating on the 5 occupancy types, what resources, tools do we actually need to be able to do that? What is the objective of the simulations? How did the simulation go? Heck, when do they end? Little details that may not have been obvious previously. We've kind of put into a document, and we've been kind of utilizing this and getting feedback from students for a little while in the development of that. So this is going to be a fantastic resource to help instructors that, you're out on your own doing it for yourself now, and you don't have one of us in the room. We're always available. You can always call us, but now there's a written guide that'll kind of give you that information. In the certification lab, and then in simulation training or continuing education for you guys, we have built a new AAR system just for that, right? So it's less detailed and less cumbersome than the larger one for bigger incidents, and with information pre-plumbed into this, so that you can actually start exercising your ability to actually use an objective system to say how well folks are doing in their simulation. The instructors can actually manipulate this as the simulation's happening or immediately following, to be able to give people an objective. Hey, this is what happened. This is how you did. These are the areas you did well. These are things you can improve on. And then it actually will start to keep track of that, so you can demonstrate improvement that students have made as you go through this training. So it's going to be an important tool, and as everything else that we put out, there'll be tutorials, video tutorials that kind of walk you through this. If you've already been through instructor training and you're not with us anytime soon, to be able to help you utilize it. As Josh mentioned, we've kind of updated the evaluation sheets for each one of the positions: IC1, IC2, support officer, senior advisor, and division boss. These are a little bit different than the AR system. The AR system is about nuts and bolts and the critical elements of the system. This is more about decision making and really the adaptation and utilization of the system to make good decisions, right? And so this is used a little bit differently. I look at this as a little bit more advanced. So you're not training new students, you're training maybe more seasoned students, or students that are becoming more competent as being ICs. This gives you ability to go back and connect some of their decisions and understanding that they have on the fire ground as ICs or whatever role they're playing, and be able to say, hey, no, you're doing a good job and this is why, or hey, these are areas we could improve in. So it's a nice thing to have for us, and then you can use them however you see fit. They're available to you. They'll be available in the download center. Biggest changes in the day one presentation come in command function 4 and 5. We really did a good job in command function 4 of talking about size up and critical factors, and then really connecting the best practices that we have now through a bunch of different documents and things, including 1700, including FSRI, that better explains fire control, better explains life safety, and then the combination and the decision making that you have to have on the fire ground to decide, okay, when and where and why are you going to do any of these? So we tried really hard to better align that. And then in command function 5, we really tried to just improve what we're talking about and how we're teaching the communications part of it, the critical element where we actually act out the incident command system on the radio. So to improve that for the students and the instructors really as we go through that. The biggest change in the sim previews comes in the big box. The commercial, strip mall, residential, and multi-unit really are the same. There's been small language adjustments, and we've cleaned things up to kind of make it more readable, but there definitely is not any drastic changes in there. Where we've made the most significant change is in the big box sim preview by attaching some critical tactical template information into that. And it really is about building decision-making at the strategic level for the IC and establishing correct incident strategy and developing an effective plan. We're not doing it to talk about a specific task level plan necessarily, but we're going to talk about the best practice that the IC needs to support in the execution of that. We also clearly delineated between sprinkler controlled conditions, smoke and fire conditions, and the actions that and considerations that we need there versus non-sprinkler controlled conditions with the critical decision and the actions that should likely take place in those elements, because we know that they're two very different conditions with two very different incident timelines with regards to the complexity and increasing problems that non-sprinkler controlled conditions pose versus sprinkler controlled. So we wanted to define that a little bit more. We've got some interesting videos to actually share, helmet cam videos from big box fires that were not sprinkler controlled, to be able to help us, along with adding some information and videos and documentation that support our sprinkler controlled fire kind of timeline and best practices. So that's probably the biggest change you will see, and it better supports, probably one of our fastest growing, complicating critical factor that we're going on is the frequency and size of buildings that we are responding to these days with fires in them. So how do we better respond? So that really sums up kind of the day one stuff. A lot of the focus of how we've changed, and then we get a ton of questions, is how do we implement this stuff for new departments, or how do we reinforce changes or maturity of the system in existing places. And every single time it comes down to this accountability model, performance improvement model, whatever term you want to use for it. But the foundations and elements, if you're trying to make any change in your system, whether it's wholesale change or small, modest adjustments in the system and process, you've got to do it using these 4 things. This is tried, tested, and highly effective, not just in the fire service, but outside the fire service. So if we're not clearly establishing standards and expectations, documenting them, sharing them, making sure that they're well understood, and then training to those, we are going to have a hard time doing any form of change and or any real work on the fire ground. So if we're doing that, we've got to have a transparent process that everybody knows inside the organization and understands of how this change or performance improvement or actions actually taking place. So we're gonna establish better best practice. We're gonna actually effectively train to those, and then we're gonna pay attention to how we're doing out in the field with executing it. The change ain't about 1 and 2. It's actually about how we're doing the work in 3. 1 and 2 get us there, but 3 is where we start to measure it. And if we start to recognize that we have problems and or issues, then we need to identify, all right, how do we fix it? Oftentimes you go back to 1 or 2 and your problem or issue is in one of those 2 places. If it's and if it is, whose responsibility is to fix that? That's typically the leadership's responsibility to fix that, right? The operational and training leadership of an organization's job is to make sure that the standards and the best practices right, and that we're actually effectively training to those. If those 2 things are right and we're having problems with the execution out in the field and in the real world, there is a low percentage of people who are maladaptive. They're either unwilling or unable to actually execute what it is you're asking. And then that becomes a different organizational problem and challenge. And you need to deal with that using your normal process. But the only way you can do that effectively is to clearly be able to vet and say that we have clear standards and expectations. We did an effective job at training just about everybody else to be able to do that. So if I have one person or a small group that's having a problem with it, either because they choose to or they just simply can't, then you're in a better position to actually deal with that. And then that last part, that manage accountability, that really is about making sure that things don't fall through the cracks, right? We all have experienced broken things in our fire departments. We all know it. We recognize it. We call it out, and nobody ever fixes it. Nobody ever takes responsibility for it. And that's a problem. So next slide. So the questions we really need to ask ourselves associated with that is, are our standards or best practices changing as we learn? Because nothing should be staying the same. What are we actually learning from? Who are we learning from? Where are we learning from? What foundation does it have? The converse to this is, are we going to continue to do the wrong thing harder? Right? And that just doesn't make sense. And and that produces predictable surprises when something goes bad. And that's really just, I don't know, the best way to say it is that's an idiot's way of doing business, I guess. I don't know. Okay, next. So lastly, we're back here. This is where we'll kind of wrap this thing up. Is this whole change and update is actually meant to dictate our standards and our process at creating competent ICs, and then us working and developing on competent instructors. And that's a two-way street between us that train instructors and the instructors that are actually working to be instructors, right? And it's got to be a continual process. So we look forward to continually evolving and adapting this stuff. I'm going to guess that in 2027, we're going to be having a similar conversation about these things happen. So we made some adjustments to the system, or we learned some things and we're making adjustments to the system, and we want to be able to share them with everybody.
All right. Great update, great presentation. We do have a few questions here that we'll try to get to. First off, when will the new eval sheets be uploaded to the B-Shifter download site?
Yeah, so we're working on getting this entire package uploaded to the Instructor download center. So we're looking at next week, probably by the end of next week, having all of it packaged up and to our IT folks so that they can remove the old stuff and replace the new stuff, as well as I can answer one of those other previous questions that we're working to organize that much better for everyone. So like we have the 3-day folder now, we're going to continue to have that 3-day folder. So if you're doing a 3-day cert lab, everything will be in that one folder.
All right, very good. And then a copy of the guide. When is that instructor guide going to be out? The playbook.
Yeah, so all of that's going to be in that 3-day. It's all completed. We're doing any like final, wrap up notes based off the classes that we just delivered, over the last month, and that entire package will be uploaded all at the same time. And when that happens, we'll push it out in the buck slip to make sure that everybody goes to the download center and sees all of the latest material that's available.
All right. We have a longer question, but it's a topic right now, and I think it's good to be addressed. So David's writing in, any changes to how search is completed? Firefighter rescue survey has identified having search crews enter through a door and through a bedroom and meet in the middle of the house if possible. Also, instead of the second engine staging at the hydrant, have them come to the scene or on deck to assist with the search. The second engine driver would nurse the first engine until the water supply is established.
So before Chris goes on to this, so we, in the Blue Card world, we don't address like how your organization does those things at the task level. And in our system, we talk about 5 building types, not just house fire. So, 99.999% of what I see out there being pushed is a discussion on house fires, which is great. That's what we go to the most. And we need to look at and consider and talk about, what best practice is. But, the example, the second engine, coming forward and then just nursing off of that engine. There's, plenty of organizations back to 2009 that the second engine does bring the water supply. The first engine never gets water. So as an organization, that's something you have to figure out. Plenty of organizations have 2 people on a fire truck. Obviously, they have to figure that out. Plenty of places all over the country have no water supply, right? So now they're using some sort of a tender or nursing operation anyway. So, those are task level things that your organization needs to figure out. And I don't think there's any question that when we talk about search, that we evaluate search and we take action based off of the critical factors and what needs to be done. And we have plenty of live audio, like 10 or 12 clips from our own Blue Card organizations of them pulling off rescues, doing vent enter search, if you will, or just entering through an opening where they've identified that this is the best place for us to find these victims because it was a known location or whatever it is. So you can find all of that audio in our podcast, and they're all labeled pretty well of, victim rescue or strategic shift or whatever that is. So, Chris, I know you're going to key in on this.
Yeah, sure. It's important to say that how we search has changed over and over and over and over, right? And it'll probably keep changing. So what we're talking about and what we've implemented into the day one for discussion and consideration as an IC, right, is really based off of 2 things. The UL FSRI size up and search study, and that then influenced NFPA 1700, and more specifically the new Chapter 13, which is considerations for search and rescue on the fire ground, right? So what we're doing is paying attention to the research and then the subsequent identified best practice, which, by the way, that best practice is supported by things like the firefighter rescue survey, right? And the folks that participate in the firefighter rescue surveys or kind of manage the rescue survey. One of them's on 1700 with us, and he was sitting in the room when we all of this was written and discussed and debated. And so really the IC's job is to support the best tactic for the given factors, as Josh said, right? And to make a good decision. And there's so many stinking variables involved in that for fire departments, just in general, the fire department, about where they are, how they're staffed, how they're resourced, how close together those resources are, how many people are on them, that there is no way Blue Card can say this is how you should do it or the only way you should do it. I I find that would be silly for us to actually do. So those departments have to make those decisions, and then pay attention to what's in those two documents. I would say that the size of pitch and search study led to 1700. So look at what's in 1700. And what's in 1700 is a window-based searched or door-based searched is completely appropriate for the given conditions, the given time, and the given resources at that particular incident, right? And so how you're going to go about executing that has to be consistent with, doing it effectively. And then maybe more importantly, it has to be consistent with the changing fire conditions, whether they're changing for the better or they're getting worse. That is going to impact your ability either positively or negatively in managing search. So we haven't really changed anything other than talking about managing and coordinating those actions, and so that you can get to those spaces. Better size up and doing a better 360 likely gives us better opportunities to actually conduct search. It also gives us a better opportunity to be more effective with fire control. So there's a lot that goes into it, and it's less about the task and dictating a change or dictating how we should do it, and more so of, all right, here it depends. Here are all the things it depends on. Here's the management system that you should use to manage all those depends situations, and then make good decisions. That's really what it comes down to.
Very good. I think we have time for at least one more question. With the big box template update, will this require a new download of the digital combustion video sim?
Nope. The simulation remains the same. The template and it's really just more front end load information to help people understand, to make better decisions, and that why we treat big box different than we do houses or apartments or commercial or anything else. So there'll be no need to update or download anything with a simulation.
All right, we're doing a number of updates right now, and I think we'll just hop to Dan's question here real quick as our last question, as we're ending on an hour. Is there a plan to update the recert module? Also, any thoughts to considering making the recertification module count toward the next hours for current recertification instead of being applied to the next recert period? I know there were some reasons we did it the way we did it when we started, so I don't know if either of you can speak to that.
Yeah, so we're with the 3rd edition of Fire Command. We've been working on for quite a while, like the considerations and what does the new online look like. So when the new online's complete, yes, there will be a new refresher module also that you take, the 5-hour recertification module, if you will, for your 3-year cycle. So that will come out of the new online that'll align with Fire Command 3.
We do have a question here on the technical rescue modules. I know there's some work being done on that.
Yeah, we're kind of in the final stages of putting that the initial 8 functions of command for that. We've got a lot of things going on right now. So managing ARF, these updates has kind of caused that TRT thing to sit motionless for a minute. We have everything we need to finish that off, so you'll likely see it here in the near future. And then once the 8 functions of command comes out, then you'll see subsequent modules with different for different rescue type calls, right? And what the incident command considerations are for those utilizing the standard system. It doesn't change a whole lot, but maybe the critical factors and the hazard zone changes a little bit depending on what type of rescue call it actually is. So yes, and stand by.
All right. Well, we're coming in on an hour. We'd like to thank everyone who joined us today and participated. If you have questions that we either didn't get to, and I think we got to most of them, but if we didn't get to them, josh@bshifter.com, chris@bshifter.com. Very easy emails. Send your questions in, and We always are happy to reach out. Every day we're getting multiple questions from Blue Card users that we address. You don't get a bot when you get to us. We really try to get back right away and have those discussions with folks. So we encourage you to send those in. Any final thoughts from Josh and Chris?
Yeah, just thanks for jumping on here. And then, a way to stay connected is to get that B Shifter buck slip. We try to put information out in that, and then, the podcast every single week. And as John said, email, call, any of us anytime, and we'll help you however we can. So
Chris,
thank
final
you.
thoughts.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to us. And look forward to trying to help you if you need it.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We'll be back with you on March 11th at 1 p.m. You can scan that QR code here, or I have pinned the link to the chat, so you can click in there. Until we talk to you again, thank you very much for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.